Hello again. My name is Phyllis Italiano, and I am the hostess of the show, The Democratic View. It is after the election, and with me today is what I would call the big winner, the man who got the most votes among those who were running for council people. And here he is, Peter Van Scoyoc.
Hi, Phyllis. Thanks for having me on the show.
Oh, I love having you. I especially want you to tell that very lovely story that I first heard from you when you were screening about how you found out about your family.
Well, I guess the story begins with us coming to town back in 1990, and Marilyn had interviewed for a job, a one-year interim replacement job at the high school as a music teacher there. And
Marilyn being your wife.
My wife, Marilyn, right. So, and I have always been in the building trades pretty much since college. And she interviewed for the job. She was offered the position, accepted the job. We went to Bucket's Deli, got some sandwiches, drove out into Northwest Woods without any particular place in mind to go. Ended up down at Alewife Brook Road, passed a little ranch house on Northwest Road, and said that would be a nice place to live. Ate her sandwiches. She said she had a phone number of someone who wanted to rent to a teacher. We went back to Bucket's Deli, got on the payphone, made a phone call, got directions, found ourselves driving back the very same way that we had originally gone to eat our lunch. Drove right up to the little ranch house that we'd passed on Northwest Road and talked to the people, and they decided that we were acceptable as tenants, and they asked what the last name was, and I told them Van Scoyoc, and they said, well, are you related to the Van Scoyocs buried in the cemetery right here near the house? And I said, I think I am, actually. My grandfather had published 3 volumes of the family genealogy going back to the 1400s in Holland, and I was aware that there was a branch of the family that was here back in the 1750s. So as it turns out,
wow.
Old roots in town.
I mean, I've heard of people who go back around here, but that's the deepest root.
Well, there are families that have been here for 100 years or more before my ancestors settled here, but we did settle in New Amsterdam in 1636 and farmed Lower Manhattan, Battery Park area, from the East River to what's now Broadway at one time.
Wow, that had to be something. So, and then from that, you got involved later on in your life on 2 of our local town boards. Would you tell us a little bit about that?
Right, I've served 11 years total on two town boards, 5 years on the Zoning Board of Appeals, and was chairman for my last year. And I'm in my 6th year now on the planning board. And
so you really know what goes on in this town.
Well, I've certainly been exposed to a lot of different aspects of the town. I'm pretty familiar with a lot of the different things going on.
So what made you decide to run?
Well, that was something I didn't really see myself doing, and I had been asked if I would screen. And in the past, and I really wasn't interested in that because my children were younger, and didn't really feel like I had the time to devote to the job if I were elected. And now my kids are a bit older, and I felt that it was an important time to get involved and continue with public service, and that this might be a way for me to serve the town and hopefully bring people together on the issues and really look at what the issues are and deal with them effectively to the greatest benefit for everyone.
What was it like to be involved in a campaign for councilperson?
It was pretty exciting. I hadn't had any experience with running for elected office other than a trustee run in 1991, and but it's quite different on the town board level. You know, recording radio spots and coming on shows like yours and
Right.
and others. I did an interview or two with Reverend Katrina Foster and Bill Fleming's show and Tell It to Henry. So I kind of made the local LTV interview circuit. And, you know, a candidate really has to put themselves out there to meet and greet the public as much as possible and try and get your positions known and, you know, meet your constituents. And so that's been, you know, very rewarding, you know. It's just been really affirmed, you know, what I knew was to be a great community. It just really affirmed that for me, meeting
And also
people.
to be involved in the whole democratic process that we talk about. You know, what was it, Tip O'Neill said, all politics is local. And there you were. I know I passed you by one time, and there you were, big as life, because you're not exactly easy to miss, in front of IGA,
Right.
you know, talking to people. And I thought to myself, my goodness, it must be a little exhausting after a while.
You know, it really is kind of exhausting, but at the same time, it's a bit of a rush. I mean, meeting people and making connections, and, you know, you realize talking to someone that such and such person's aunt, you know, that you didn't really realize that you knew the other person that they were talking about, and then you kind of bring the whole thing together and realize just how tight-knit the community is. I've just had a bunch of wonderful experiences campaigning. Really enjoyed campaigning out in front of the Montauk Post Office, you know, right after the summer season's over, and the locals all kind of come out, and they're not so busy with working and whatnot, and you know,
And hiding.
somewhat festive atmosphere, you know.
Yeah. So we all know that that our candidate, the Democratic candidate for supervisor, Zach, lost by, I believe it's 17 votes, and which is I would say, as narrow a margin as you possibly can get.
It's an extremely narrow margin, and I read a little bit from someone on Patch. He'd said that they'd sort of followed the supervisor races since 1956, and this is the closest one they ever remember being. And it just really, you know, shows you how much, especially in a small town like this, your vote counts.
Yes.
It absolutely counts. It's that close of a race that every single vote counts.
And do you have any idea about the percentage of people who did get out and vote?
It's in the it's below 40%, which is sad.
Oh.
That's very disappointing that you know, of the people who are registered to vote in town, I think less than 40% actually voted in this election. Generally, the off-term elections, when there's not a presidential, when the national races
Right.
aren't being contested, that you know, there is a drop-off in voter interest with just local elections. So, but still, you know, when you think about the impacts directly to the local community, local elections are very important.
Yes, and the impact is something we're going to talk about now. I know you and of course Sylvia Ogilvie also won, so that makes us back where we were when we had Julia Prince and Pete Hammerly as the royal opposition. So now you are in the position with Sylvia to present a slightly different point of view. And there are so many crucial issues that did not dissolve with the election. They prevailed, the issues go on, and they are of primary importance to the quality of the life of the people who live in the town of East Hampton. So certainly we know the airport issue and is a huge one. And that will be up for discussion, I believe it's coming up
December 1st, I believe.
December
there's going to
1st. Yes, I know, I plan to be
meeting.
there that night.
Right.
So what do you think about how you will perform as a council person? What are you going to do to help?
Well, I really like to make it an issue-based approach and to really look at each individual issue outside of the context of the political arena as much as possible, and just not have a sort of partisan majority-minority kind of relationship if possible, and to really try and form consensus on each particular issue. I don't think that there's any one issue that's going to necessarily have to fall on political lines. I think, to better serve the town, it's important to look at the facts on any given case and trying to make an honest, open approach to resolving any particular issue. I think that's the most important thing, and that best benefits the general public.
One of the things when I remember when you did come and screen before the committee, that immediately attracted me to your words was that you used the word balance, that there would be a balance between how we grow and allowing, people to also earn livings and flourish. So I'm assuming that that's the kind of approach you're looking to in the issues that are before us?
Yeah, I mean, I've always tried to work towards a consensus on any board that I've served on, and not really tried to play, politics as much as possible. I just think it's really important to focus on those aspects and try and draw people in together to work, and that always means that there's going to be some compromise necessary, but to have extreme views on any particular issue and the two extremes pulling apart at the middle, it seems to me that it's much better to have a more balanced approach and try and bring people together towards a common solution. So that's what I hope to be able to bring to the town board, and that's a challenge that I'm going to work hard to meet.
Well, that sounds wonderful. I'm delighted to hear that. There are things that kind of scare me a little bit. I was reading in a little, back page of the Star about a restaurant that sold recently in Montauk, and the people who bought it spent several $1 million to buy this little restaurant. And right next door to it is another little restaurant that is also the owner of the building wants to sell exactly, the same thing. And what I'm thinking about is that going to become another, Rushmire type of place where, we'll have a nightclub? I mean, how are we going to kind of keep some kind of balance right there in Montauk? I'm not interested in seeing, and I'm sure the people in Montauk aren't interested in seeing Montauk become, a honky-tonk, Ocean City, Maryland type of place, which is where I used to go when I was a kid. How are we going to make sure that doesn't happen?